It was for me obviously inspiring because as again chairman of ICTC9, I think this will be good inputs on these topics for the working group and to improve. In fact, during the presentation of Davide, you have seen that actually this is not an international standard and is not a European standard, but it is a technical specification. So this was exactly because we were having lack of information, mainly from the users. And now I think we have the opportunity, not only with your help, but we have also created a good cooperation between ICTC9 and UIC on this part, and so I suppose that now we will have the information from the users. Okay, so the panel is finished, all the presentations are finished. Now in the program we have to run some questions and possibly have some answers.
My first question is to Ms. Joutier. We're in the GOA 3 and 4, so automated train operation, we're really looking at front-side cameras, front-side lidars, for detection of all kinds of objects. So this was also in Jacob's presentation. I didn't see you address that thing. Is it incorporated in the framework, or are you just not there? What's the status of it?
Yes, of course, video analytics will be very useful for that use case. That's true. It's Thales is a very large company, so it's taken into account by my colleagues from URS, from Thales in Canada. But this technology is really part. Video analytics will be really integrated for ATO. But personally, I'm more focused on the physical security on wayside and onboard trains, so that's why I didn't mention this in the presentation, but it doesn't mean that it's not part of the digitalization.
Because we want to actually have that capability way before driverless operation, because we think that it's good to have intrusion detection, both on board with cameras looking forward for people walking close to the trails, and transmission from the track side towards the car saying, well, there may be somebody walking there or having intruded. And that brings me to the second question. Now, in the last presentation, there was much focus on transformation of video information, where I think that for LiDAR information and for detection of this kind of things would be very wasteful. I'd much rather have an event like there may be somebody with some kind of standard description after video analytics than the transmission of my megabytes of data all the time. Have you put that into your framework as well?
Just, if I may, just one point. One of the major innovation topic is to transform video to text.
Yep.
Okay. And then when we're able to transform video to text, then we're able to transmit this kind of information in a semantic way.
And are there already standards for that?
Sorry?
Are there standards for that already? For the text which is coming from videos, like
yes.
boxes with apple and orange and that
yes,
kind of stuff?
Exactly.
So these things should be incorporated as well?
Yes.
And that can also be used for LiDAR images? Like radar images, but then with infrared light?
Yeah,
Thank you.
So there are other questions? Ah, yeah. Yeah.
I realized this presentation over this is electric trolley. It was from you, but because
Yes.
in my analysis, trip through railway domain, in general, I identified this event recorders and as one of the most vulnerability and critical devices in terms of cybersecurity. And I would like to see that these new approaches, which are very intelligent, have from the beginning on built-in cybersecurity approach. I can explain why. The thing is, on these devices, all the information about the train are available, and it's constantly used. And so you have, that is the opportunity, I think the only one, to hijack the train. Because you have mostly to all layers, safety or not, information and contact or interfaces. So it must be clear that there are data diode structures built in on the lowest level in the hardware, for example, and so on. These things are all to take care because the current used system here are often used with USB sticks, which are double issues or double devices because you can influence or you can integrate malware very easily. One USB stick is like another one. You can exchange it and so on. That is very critical, and that is a vulnerability highest level. I would like to say. And at the end, there was very interesting presentations where I can found this. Is that then on the SharePoint also from Zendelec?
Excuse me, what?
About all the presentations.
Oh no, all the presentation will be available, are already some of them available, some are not yet loaded, some others are now old because the speakers were bringing updates, but I think that Paolo will take care in few days maybe to update the website, so you have just to browse ICT on trains and then you can retrieve all the presentations. But just to refer to your observation, I agree with you. I have quite good experience on event recorders because I was personally engaged more than 15 years ago in the first design of the event recorders for Italian trains. And I was also involved in the working group 48 in IC that has prepared the standard. The cybersecurity was considered at the time, but only to be sure that what is recorded cannot be corrupted when it is retrieved. But there was absolutely no care, nothing that was taking care of the fact that what you are recording should be what is the reality, and this is the weak point from the secure point of view in the presentation.
On the event record, you have all IP addresses, everything. So just reading those logs, any attacker will know all the attack vectors in each and every device you're training.
I don't know what are the other event recorders, but in Italy, all the event recorders are having security features. First, the data can be recorded only if there is a match between the certificate of the crash memory and the certificate of the main unit that is collecting the information. The data are encrypted, and in Italy, all the drivers, they have a license, let's say, that is a small badge that is directly connected to the data that are recorded, and this is not is a part of security that is non-repudiation. Because there is also the problem that the driver cannot say these are not my data. But we need to make some improvement to be sure that what we are recording is what was the reality. And for this we need at least to have secure transmission between all the distributed equipment on the train and the recording unit. Some other questions? Because otherwise, if we have no questions, we can move to the next, that is to have, let's say, a round table or better, a wrap around all the 2 days. I think that just to make an introduction from my side, I think we had some keywords that can be extracted from these 2 days. The first keyword obviously is digitalization. Digitalization, we have learned that is more than digitization, because it means so to change also the process, not only to transform into digital information what before was not digital, but the digitalization imply absolutely and really the cybersecurity, because as far as trains and fixed installation go to be more and more digital, cybersecurity will be for sure an issue. But it's not only to say digitalization is leading to cybersecurity, it's leading also to another keyword, that is big data. We will have a lot of data, and okay, it will be very useless to collect all this data if then after we do nothing with them. And this implies something else, that is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, I remember that I was participating in Paris in 1990 to an international meeting on artificial intelligence, and there were a lot of speakers promising that neural networks will solve all the problem existing, but from that time 27 years were elapsed. But now seems that is the case, because we have now real applications that are demonstrating that artificial intelligence is really coming, and is something that can be applied in many fields. So, what to say? Okay, this is very nice. We see that trains are moving to a future in which the most technologies on the leading edge are used. But in my view, we have to do something else. If you remember the opening speech, there was something said by Mr. Citroën, that he was not believing too much into self-driving cars, but I think that this is one of the competition that trains may have, because until now trains are considered to be clean, are the most green transportation system. They have an advantage that you are a passenger, but you are not a driver. Instead, in many cases, when you are using the car, you are passenger and driver at the same time. And the last is that in the past, the prices for the tickets were cheap in front of other transportation modes, but this is no more the case. Sometimes I have experienced that in Italy, for going from my city to Rome, that are 500 kilometers, the cost of the train ticket is more than the cost of the plane. So, what I think is that we have to change the paradigm, not only to use technologies, but to change the paradigm. And it means that we have to move from the concept of the transportation mode to a concept of a global service that is offered to the passenger for being transported. And in this case, the idea is in Shift2Rail, because we have learned that Shift2Rail is already trying to address the concept of the door-to-door. That is what the passenger is asking for. So, this was my reflection on these 2 days, and now if someone of you like to put questions that are relevant to what we were presenting and discussing in these 2 days, or wants to give us statements or reflection, the microphone is for you. So someone likes to say something? Okay, Bart. You have the right, you are the host, you are hosting us.
It's also more a question to the audience. What do you think on the concepts? Did you have too many presentations? Was it sufficiently different topics? Should we be, on a next edition, for instance, have it split it on parallel sessions and go a little bit deeper on some topics? So maybe it's also time of reflection now, and that's you can give your feedback, how we should be better in 2 years. Has anyone some inputs on these aspects?
Okay. Someone else?
Oh, yeah.
Well, this was my first time here, and I'm once again amazed with Europe. There are so many working groups on so many different subjects that are related, and I think it's good that people didn't go too deep, because just to give this overview of all these different subjects being worked on by multinational groups, and that people find each other, I think is very impressive. So thank you, Bart. And no parallel session, because otherwise you wouldn't learn from these other groups and that they exist and that they do very good work.
Yes. In fact, just to give you a little bit of history, the idea of ICT on trains was born now, I think, is more than 8 years ago. It was in China. We were overnight having a dinner all together. We were in China, but the table was all of European people. And we were saying, okay, exactly what you have said. We have so many activities, so many groups, that it will be very useful to have, maybe as we have done every 2 years, the possibility of exchanging between us all our knowledge, because this is something that is very useful to create benefit to everyone. Someone else?
In my point of view, I would like to have had parallel session and perhaps a little bit more technically involved. And if possible, perhaps to start also with the needs from our customer, because we have spoken a lot about cybersecurity, but what do they require today? We have spoken about standardization, but what does our customer fear? What do they want?
Which customer?
That's where we have a panel, so they are also represented here, and that's a way where we can. Okay.
Basically, the rail system has a couple of customers. We have the traveler, we have the people wanting to transfer freight, but we also we have the customer, we have the people wanting to transfer freight, but we also have the juridical system, we have the lawyers, we have the verzekeraars, insurance companies, and they all have the requirements. So if you talk about a customer, who is it?
Personally, for me, these are the operators, because I'm in that business today. I'm delivering train and in TCMS. That's what I would like to have known, and I was coming here to hear about cybersecurity. And okay, we know the customer we meet every day, but these events are very useful also to hear what's happening in other places. Just a comment.
Yes, anyway, thank you for your observation, and just for giving one bit more of information. This is something that as I have said before, was born 8 years ago in a table of people that were all European and all member of Senelec, TC9X. TC9X was promoting this activity in the sense that was putting no money, but anyway was offering the experts and was offering also their communication system and their site for promoting this event. Normally, let's say 1 year before the expected next event that is every 2 years, so this will be next year. Next year we are forming a group in Senelec that is open to everyone for preparing the content of the next ICT on trains. So, for example, if you want to participate, you are welcome. Someone?
Well, I will give a statement to yours. From my point of view, it's very clear what is the intention, the wish of from the operator and customer side. That is, they would like a secure system. That's very simple. Well, the question is, what is the secure system? That's it. And maybe there is another issue which is relevant in this field. I see that cybersecurity do not work isolated. That is clear. Raised a couple of times during this presentation over the day. Sorry. The thing is, maybe we should look in which way the cooperation should work, in which way the interaction between the organizational and also the technical infrastructure should be established for operators and for manufacturers that works.
And today we've had two great presentations, one by Mr. von Siemens and one by Björn, because starting from that point is the question who owns the data and therefore who is responsible. And during lunch we had this great discussion, and especially as we will have central gateways on each train, probably the owner of that central point will have the legal obligation to fulfill everything. And so the good thing, both Siemens and Björn said, that will be the owner of the train set. And he'll have the full responsibility for each and every cybersecurity aspect. However, I don't think that the owners of those train sets currently feel it that way. And maybe that would be a very good starting point, first to understand how to make them feel their responsibility, and then, as a second step, how to support them.
Just to add on, it's likely not the owner, it's the entity responsible for it, because the owner can be a bank, and the bank is owning it, and there is a leasing company leasing it to a rail undertaking, and maybe someone else even using it.
The owner has final legal obligation.
I don't think the bank is wanting to have that obligation. They will try to give it to others. They will sub-delegate that obligation.
Okay.
This subject is something we've looked at in the UK a little bit, mostly on remote condition monitoring data is where it started in the UK, because we've got operators and infrastructure managers who are entirely separate, but on the train you can fit equipment to monitor the track and vice versa. And a couple of years ago we published research T1010, which looked at how you share data between organisations, how you make that available. and we set up a variety of tools through that, partly looking at the legal contracts of who owns the data. And there were some various principles included in that research report. And we're currently actually running an implementation programme to support that research between Crossrail and part of Network Rail, where the trains that are operating on Crossrail have track monitoring equipment fitted. And it's a test case to look at the data interchange between organisations from the proprietary formats, and then also how you set up the legal contractual arrangements, and also who stores and manages the data.
And probably all the cybersecurity stuff.
Yes, and the cybersecurity, and we're working through it. So we expect to be publishing something probably back in next year, once we've run through the implementation, on guidance on how to run it. The research is available on the RSSB website. I have a few flyers about it if anyone's interested now.
Can they put up on the website on ICT?
Yes, I can send it to Paolo to provide the link for that.
Yes, we can put this link on the ICT website. But now I think that it will be nice to hear something from Paolo, that is one of the one that has done the most for this edition and the past edition.
Thank you, Gian Osvaldo. We are now approaching the end of this very interesting and nice workshop. I hope it was interesting for all of you. But before leaving, I have two provocations to have your opinion on. The first one came from panel 1 yesterday. We heard a couple of times at least that there are other threats to railways, not security, not safety, but on the life of railways. We heard that other transport modes are doing a lot, improving their performance, and so becoming more and more very strong competitors of railways, trying to replace them. And actually, I think it was 1 year ago, I read on an internet blog related to intelligent transportation systems a text which was starting with this title. Investing in high-speed railways is the worst investment that a state can make. Then it was going on, and it was doing this doomsday railway forecast that railways lines will be used in another way, removing the tracks, paving them, and having them to run trains of autonomous cars. This was written. So I think, of course, this is not for 10 years, it's not for next 20 years, but I don't know, in 50 years, do you think this is possible, or do you think that the railways will find a way to evolve in order to avoid this risk and therefore to become, on the opposite, the best transportation mode which will replace road traffic and even in some cases, not always of course, but in some cases can replace even air traffic due to this evolution. So I would be interested in knowing some opinions.
Of course, rail will rule. We've put in this TGV line between Amsterdam and Paris, and it basically killed air. Before the train line, everybody flew between Amsterdam and Paris. Afterwards, nobody did that. It's that simple. If you have good service, people come to you. the Netherlands would come to a standstill if we wouldn't have rail. No highway will have the capacity of the 4,000 or 6,000 people per hour that we do during rush hour. They just cannot make it. And Elon Musk said if you do autonomous cars, all the highways will be completely one big traffic jam. An autonomous car needs more space, about 4 times more. So putting in these autonomous cars will just really put one big traffic jam to all the highways and force people to go into the trains, if only we keep up good service. And that will be hard, because in the Netherlands ridership has been growing by 30% per decade over the last 3 decades, and we're really ending what we can do on the current infrastructure. So we will building rails and rails and rails in the Netherlands in a couple of decades, because people are really going to the Dutch railways and they want to have more of it. Our problems are now mainly with growth and having more passengers than that we can handle. So rail will rule, but in order to do that, we have to have twice the reliability, half the price. And that's what Shift Rail promises us. So that's what we are, as operators, are counting on, that we'll have double the reliability for half the price at the end of Shift Rail, which is good.
And you're bringing to the gift we are having as Infrabel to the speakers. We have a book on the high-speed line in Belgium. They're available at the table there, so all speakers and moderators not yet having it can take it. If there are left, other people can also take it home at the end of this day.
It sounds, Pat, like you have to produce a lot of more of those and spread them around Europe, right? Just comment to that. I think we need to diversify a little bit on what we say is going to die and live in this. Passenger traffic is usually bought partially by the personal humans that want to take the passenger trains and the governments that needs the service to operate somewhere. So it's not going to die tomorrow. However, there's another side to this, and that's cargo. And cargo is business to business. And if someone chooses to send this by sea, by air, or by road, they can do that tomorrow. So if you're talking about anything that could die fast, if they're not competitive, that's the area to discuss. And that's actually a reality, because I heard, I think it was 1 year ago, there was a colleague from ERA that actually said this, that with the new trucks that is coming on roads, where 5 trucks can drive as a train and only the first one have a driver, the other ones have intelligence on board to just follow suit, with battery packs that you can fill on these trailers, suddenly the electricity feeding to trains, which means you have a lot lower price in energy for a train than anything on roads, is gone. Now, what else do you have of advantages? Well, you can carry a lot. Well, the problem is that the only thing that cargo customers are interested in is I need to know the price, I need to know when it gets there, I need to have insurance if it doesn't get there, and I don't care about the rest. And with that setting, there is a problem that by sea you have a market that has been developed for years and years. It would take me 1 minute to call a company and get a crate or something that I can send from here to China. With railroads, not that easy. Not that safe. No, it's not. Not across Europe.
Yeah, from China to London.
Depends on the carrier. We have operators that deliver that.
I know, you have operators, but you don't have a full marketplace for all operators that can do this. That's the whole point.
We have a Bechtel line, and as soon as the Germans put up the last of it, we'll have good access.
So I get from Rotterdam to the German border. Well, that's not going to cut it across Europe, to be honest. No, but seriously, that is the big challenge. So I think we need to diversify a little bit when it comes to what kind of services are we talking about. Are we talking about commuter services around Berlin? Are we talking about high speed through Europe? Or are we talking about cargo here? Because they have a whole different situation. It was said here, we need to have the clients and the customers on board in the next ICT for trains to know what are actually their problems. And I think this is the diversity that we need to have on the table. Cargo is really what I'm fearing for the next 10 years.
Yes, just beyond to add something to this, maybe there's someone of you who are informed that Senelec TC9X was asked by the Road Vehicle Association to standardize a pantograph for trucks. And they have in mind to put headlines on the highways in Europe and then to run trucks with electricity. So we have to consider also this. And in this case, I think there are already examples working of a few kilometers of lines on the road.
Gentlemen, these two interventions last is exactly what gave me to think the 2 days of presentation is that we talk about intelligence maybe on train, but trying to say that we have to change the paradigm and so on from doors to doors. But all of us continue to distinguish passenger trains to cargo trains. Maybe it would be good to try to have another thing we are thinking by stopping distinguish these two ways, because all the intelligence we focus on the passenger trains is not so far away from the problems of cargo.
Yes, in fact, this is an idea that is also now in Italy, and the operator is experimenting cargo trains that will be able to run mixed up with passenger trains. So it means that there will be a little bit special, able to run at a higher speed than nowadays, because this will be something very good, because before I heard what is only important for the user is to know when the good is picked up and when it is received in the final destination. And nowadays, with most of freight trains that are running overnight, sometimes the good is ready in the morning and is delivered only in the late afternoon, but in the same time a truck can deliver directly the good to the final destination. So I think this is something that has to be considered.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add regarding the trucks with the pantographs. I mean, they are already deployed. I mean, actually Siemens has a product.
Yeah, we know, because in fact the proposal to standardize the pantograph was arriving to TC9X from the German National Committee.
It's traffic work in Sweden having it.
Yeah, talking about Sweden. True, okay, yeah. Talking about Sweden, I'm coming from Sweden. Anyhow, I would like to thank you for this workshop or event. And I think it's very good that you focus on one main subject. I like this cybersecurity subject this time. And then have a follow-up on the other subjects you are working on. And we have touched one for the next time perhaps, and that's actually ICT for the competitiveness of the railways. I mean ICT for trains, not the technical one on trains. So please.
Okay, we will come back on this in a few minutes.
We have some ideas, and in fact we want to share these ideas because we now have in front of us 2 years to prepare the next edition, and so we want to collect maybe on our ideas your comments.
I have a second provocation, which is we have now spoke a little bit about threats to railways from outside. But what about threats to railways from inside? And I explain what I mean. I am working in railway research since a very long time, and what I heard since 30 years are a lot of good ideas, good new possibilities, but sometimes, too many times, I heard, okay, but this is too early for this in railways. So sometimes railways lost the opportunity to be the most advanced transport mode in a technology because they decided to wait. And waiting a lot, then someone else overcame this advanced situation. I give you an example. In 1985, I led a group to design a train driving system, which was at that time quite a challenge. Today is almost a game. But at that time I realized that railways had a very specific environment because basically it is a one-dimension movement because the train goes where someone else decides. And this was simplifying a lot the building of a train simulator, train drive simulator. But of course other transport modes are more complex. You know, road vehicles, they have movement in 2 dimensions. And airplanes, they move in 3 dimensions. So it's quite a physical, more complex environment. But what happened? The most advanced vehicles from the automatic driving mode were not the simpler one, but were the more complex one, because planes have automatic piloting since many, many years. And up to a short time ago, cars had nothing, but now they are recovering this very quickly, and already there is a car which has a driving license in the US. So, trains, we're speaking about automatic train operation since 30 years ago, but we did not yet achieve it, at least in mainline. So in metro, yes, since a long time, since that time. But why railways are so late in achieving this capability in a one-dimensional movement environment? This is what I think it is an internal threat, that sometimes slow advance of evolution can bring to competition problems. If you have an opinion.
My name is Dirk de Koning from Siemens. I have also the idea I would suggest, make a suggestion for next time. This workshop was about digitalization and security, of course. And I've seen most of the presentations discussed the security aspects, the threats and so, and there are a lot of standards being developed by different work groups. To be honest, I don't see the forest anymore in between the trees. And that's also the reason that it is very difficult to innovate, because digitalization is in the first case innovation, is doing things completely different. If you have to take all these standards into account, it's impossible to make an innovative project. What I would suggest is for next time is to bring stories, digitalization stories, this innovation stories, stories that shows how the business can be improved. We can increase the responsiveness of the railway, and of course we have also to demonstrate that the data is secure and so. But that's a second priority, let's say. First, we must think about the business. How can we improve the business? And secondly, we must demonstrate that it is secure also. If you start with investigating the security and the threats, okay, we die. There's a lot of ideas simply cannot be started up because they were died before they come to an ID. You see?
Yes,
It's
I
clear.
agree. Thank you.
But you said already why is the railway so slow, but that's one of the reasons I think.
Yeah, of course, there are always good reasons, but sometimes you have to push and not to be pulled. You understand, digitalization is happening because the technology is going so fast that you are pushed to use it. Because everyone is using it, you have it in your pocket.
Well, for that reason, I propose for next time, more focus on these new ideas. And then also, it's important to explain that they are safe. Like yesterday, the presentation of big data analysis for maintenance by Infrabel was a good example. And today we have seen some examples about ATO. But also the Czechish presentation was very interesting, I think. It was without taking all these standards into account. The worst case for ITO is, I think, is that everybody waits until the standards will be ready by shift to rail details. Then the project will die before the first proof of concept will be on the rails.
Yes, you're right. I think one answer is that some strong initiative like Shift to Rail can overcome this slowness of railways as it happened in the past and accelerate the innovation in the railways.
Yeah, we need really to think about how we can accelerate ideas. We need to make proof of concepts for that. But okay, we have to take measures, of course, to guarantee the safety and security. But you see.
I'd really like to remark what Carlo has done. In my opinion, we have either small size urban system where you have lots of innovation from the operators, and or large scale Chinese system where there's a lot of innovation because of the governance regulates it, or you should go to the European model where you have intermediaries doing their own innovation and have different operators compete and let the most innovative win, which is going to be something that's going to be really hard, but that's something what's happening. Right now, in the Netherlands we have SNCF by Veolia and Arriva by the Bay running trains, and NS is running trains through Abellio in England and in Germany. And I think that that kind of arrangement will give us now the opportunity to have all these innovations that have been piled up over the last decade, that they will be employed because there will be businesses that will take advantage of it. So I think that with the fourth railway package, we're now moving very quickly in Europe, and that we can be as innovative as the metro systems and as China.
Okay, one thing you have the good intention, one thing is the reality of what happens. Anyway, it is anyway a good starting point. Any more opinions?
I have an opinion. Just kind of a proposal for something. We've been talking about ICT on trains here, but it sounds every now and then that we're talking about an intranet on the train, which I don't, for most cases, don't have any contact with Mother Earth, to be honest. Because in most of the situations I see around Europe, the train is moving, but there's no link to anything else. Now, you might have a lot in the cloud, but you don't get there. You don't get access. We are talking about here the services that would like to have some kind of communication on board the ground. I have a request. I just have a small request for the next time. Could anyone try to push for having a GSM or something coverage along the tracks? In Norway, we put up terabyte fiber cables along the tracks, but you cannot get into this with a cell phone. You have no coverage at all. So if you have things in the cloud, sorry. If you're an office worker and you want to sit 3 hours or 4 hours on the train, you'd rather take a Norwegian flight because they have satellite contact and I can work on with whatever is on the internet. This is to the point of what you're talking about, and this is a physical kind of the OSI model basic layer. You don't get physical contact to the internet, then the rest of the ideas here is not actually deliverable. That's the problem.
That communication problem is one of the problems, of course. Yes.
I would like to make one more statement. So we're talking about threats here to the railway business, and I mean internal and external. I mean at the end of the day, it's all about like making money, right? And making money also means how much money you spend, because that is because the profit is like, or with your profit is deducted by how much you spend. And okay, I mean, and I would like to repeat something that I said in my talk in different words. I mean, the thing is, currently we are spending more money. We're spending a lot of money on the security, and that is basically because we don't have standardized methods, right? So that's why I would just like to reinforce the need for standards, because at the end of the day, that's money, and my wish is that the operators kind of also put pressure on whoever to make sure that the standards are coming. And we are in a very nice position because we have a technical consensus. I mean, if you look at all the talks that we had here today, pretty much everyone agrees, right? I mean, everyone agrees that 62443 is the...
How much will the Siemens spend be deducted by the standards? Will it be 100,000 per car? How much cheaper will a Siemens car become because of this standard is approved? Is it 100,000 per car or 50,000 per car?
I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to tell you the number, but I mean...
But that's what we need in order to put on pressure, because if we had that number, we go anywhere and we make sure that we get this deduction.
I mean, actually, that's a very good point. I will kind of see whether I can use this number to give it to you to put out the pressure, because doing things that are not...
We don't feel the pressure there.
No. The thing is, you write into your when you order a train, right? You write into your tender. You say, make the train secure, right? And then the question is, and then we start discussing. So what do you mean by that? And if you would just have a standardized method, I mean, then all this discussion and we wouldn't need a new process for every single product, right? And that is, the thing, and that is money in the end. And if you kind of say that you want the number to put pressure, I'll see whether I can get you the number. Yeah.
Anyway, just to add some information about what can be done in the next months and let's say few years in standardization, there is not only the initiative that you have presented in TC9X, but TC9X has a special agreement with ICTC9. We call it Emerging Strategy, and we have more or less 4 meetings per year to make coordination. For security, it is already decided from both sides to have liaison officers, one from TC9X and one from TC9. And as soon as the working group 26 has finalized in a very precise way the task that has received, we are running in parallel in ICTC9 another group for completing. And so this is something that may result at the end in one document produced in Europe by TC9X that will be offered to ICTC9, and that will be also an international standard without any change in the text. And on the other side, we will run as usual to what is called the parallel voting. That means that as soon as the document produced in ICTC9 will be a stable draft, it will be also published in Senelec for voting. So I suppose that maybe that we can try to address this, and in order to be sure that we do not reinvent the wheel, because we have too many wheels in our trains, we have also liaison to TC65. That is one of the most active committee in security.
So yes, I just want to react on what you just raised. if you don't have a standard, because I have a lot of fundamentalism standard, what does it mean? We are in a building and constructing environment, and if you don't take it into account, you will have to pay much more. If you ask me a new product, I have already, you want to change the standard, the security standard, I have to rebuild it. It will take you 5 years, and I would say 4 or 5 million only to recode what I have already coded. It's why we need it, to make it right to the market at low price. If you don't understand that, I don't know. But usually we are selling some equipment only 20, 50 pieces. It's really low. If we have on the 20 pieces to remake the code or the hardware each time, it will cost you a fortune. And this is quite simple and clear. And I don't understand your question again, because it is so. Take a GSM, put another protocol on it, you do nothing, you put it in the basket, or you pay to control your GSM, and it doesn't cost €100, it will cost you 10,000 of euros. It's so as simple as that.
Yes, thank you. This is another well-known and old problem of the railways. The numbers are not so big, and the habit to have always customized trains is increasing the cost a lot. This is a very old problem, yes. So, I think we know...
So we can move to the last, very last. So, Paolo, if you can present what is the idea for the next edition.
Yes, I think we have to close now. It was a really pleasure to be here with all of you. But before closing, I wish to thank you for coming, to thank all the speakers for their very good presentations. I think we had a very high level of presentations. I of course thank also the speakers who are not here, but were here yesterday. And I wish to thank all the members of the TC9X Working Group 15-4, which together with me prepared since February this workshop with more than 12 web meetings and a lot of work at home. So I thank, of course, our sponsors, because this is a self-financed workshop, and so we need some sponsors to cover the cost of all what you have experienced in these days, starting from Siemens, our gold sponsor, but also all the other sponsors, and all the organizations which endorsed this workshop, starting of course from Senelec, Infrabel, which hosted us, and the Belgian Standardization Committee, and all the organizations. Most of them are based in Brussels, but this does not matter, which supported our workshop also with a lot of good high-level speeches. And now, before letting you go away, we have this planned announcement that we have again learned a lot from these editions of ICT on Trains. And the first thing we learned in these 2 days is the trains are important, but are a limited view, too limited now. We need a more global view, so we wish to change the name of the workshop, not ICT on Trains, but ICT on Rails. And this will give a more complete perspective to our view. By the way, it was already so, because as you have seen, yesterday and today we had a presentation speaking of trains, but also speaking of traffic management, some infrastructure aspects, And so this is the reality, and we have to follow it. The trains are part of the rail system, and we need to have an approach which considers the complete rail system. This is now called the holistic approach.
By law, maybe the word railways is better than rails, because rails is looking to a part of the infrastructure. And something I learned from the discussion the last hour, maybe we should replace on by for, and then it's ICT for railways.
Maybe
we can discuss, of course, in next edition, but
sure.
vote for. Okay, I think it's going to change already by Janos Pablo. He approves.
And I'm happy to say that this new edition of ICT on Trains, which will be ICT for railways, will really happen, because we already have 2 offers from national committees to host next edition. So we have even a backup solution if the first one will not work. And we also have an idea, maybe to be refined, about the main topics. We think we have to focus on the Internet of Transportation Things, which is the transport version of the Internet of Things. We heard something about it. We needed to focus on big data. They were named several times as a big challenge for railways as well as for all business. And about artificial intelligence, which can really bring to a step forward in the railways evolution. So I hope to see all of you at the next edition sometime in September 2019, and thank you very much.
And I think that we will, as promised, we will put the results of the updated presentation on ICT on trains. We will keep the website of ICT on trains, that maybe there he has to change the name, to have a place in which you can put your suggestion for the next edition. Okay? In order that from now until 1 year from now we can collect this suggestion, and when we set up the working group in Senelec, we can start with inputs.
Anyway, this was part of our habits in the past. If you look carefully in the current website, you find links to the previous editions, because we don't throw away anything. Okay, thank you very much, and see you in 2 years, but most of you well before.